Sometimes the most revealing moments happen when nobody expects them. Not in a headline. Not in a dramatic announcement. But in something as quiet as an empty chair on a Monday morning. If you tuned in to Live with Kelly and Mark recently expecting the usual rhythm, the coffee mugs, the banter, the easy chemistry that's defined their partnership for years, you may have noticed something felt slightly different. The episodes were airing, sure. But they weren't quite live. Last week's episodes were actually pre-recorded, with the show returning with another pre-taped episode on June 22nd. And for a couple whose entire brand is built on spontaneity, on unscripted laughter, unplanned tangents, the sense that you're watching two people simply be themselves in real time, that shift matters more than it might seem on the surface. Hello. Here's the thing about Kelly and Mark. Their appeal was never really about the format of the show. It was about authenticity. Viewers didn't fall in love with a talk show, they fell in love with a marriage playing out honestly in front of a studio audience. So when the rhythm changes even slightly, people notice. Some viewers wondered if this was the start of something bigger. Was this the beginning of a real shakeup, a signal that the show's future looked different than its past? The actual explanation turned out to be far simpler, and honestly a little more human. The break from live episodes came down to something as ordinary as the cast and crew taking their annual summer vacation. No scandal. No falling out. Just two people and the team around them stepping away to breathe for a moment before diving back in. The show was set to return to live broadcasts by the following week, with celebrity guests lined up to kick things off again. Hello. And maybe that's exactly the point worth sitting with. In an industry obsessed with constant content, constant hustle, constant visibility, there's something quietly radical about a couple who have built an empire together choosing to simply pause. Not disappear. Not quit. Just rest. For two people who've spent decades in front of cameras, who met on a soap opera set, fell in love, built a life, raised 3 kids, and now co-host a nationally broadcast morning show together, the ability to still prioritize a vacation together says something about how they've managed to protect their relationship from being completely consumed by their careers. But the pre-taped episodes weren't the only shift happening behind the scenes. Because while some viewers were focused on the live versus recorded question, a much bigger transformation was quietly unfolding in the background. One that says a lot about where Kelly and Mark are heading next, not just as hosts, but as creative partners. The two have been developing a new docuseries, produced through their own company Melojo in partnership with ABC News Studios. And this is where things get genuinely interesting because for the first time in a long time, Kelly and Mark aren't just the faces of a show, they're stepping fully into the role of executive producers. One television editor pointed out that while audiences are used to seeing them in front of the camera on their morning show, this new project puts them behind it, driving the creative direction of stories the public hasn't seen yet. Hello. Think about what that actually means for a couple who built their entire public identity on being in front of the audience. For over 2 decades, Kelly has sat across from a camera and simply talked, to guests, to viewers, to Mark. That's been her gift. But producing is a different kind of vulnerability. It means trusting a vision you can't fully control from behind a desk. It means believing in a story enough to put your name on it without being the one telling it directly. That's a real evolution, and it says something about where they are in their careers. Not chasing more airtime, but chasing more ownership over the kinds of stories they want to help tell. And it's worth pausing here to talk about why this milestone lands so differently for Kelly specifically. Earlier this year, she celebrated 25 years at the helm of Live. 25 years. Let that sink in for a second. She took over the chair in 2001, stepping in alongside Regis Philbin after Kathy Lee Gifford's departure, and she's remained there ever since, through Regis's exit in 2011, through years alongside Michael Strahan, then Ryan Seacrest. Co-hosts have come and gone. Formats have shifted. The entire television landscape has transformed around her, from cable dominance to streaming disruption to the rise of social media clips replacing full broadcasts. And through all of it, Kelly Ripa has remained the one constant. Hello. That kind of longevity isn't just a career achievement. It's an emotional through line for millions of viewers who have, in a strange way, grown up alongside her. People who watched her with their morning coffee as students are now watching with their own kids. That's not nostalgia. That's trust built over decades, one weekday morning at a time. And then, in 2023, something changed the equation entirely. Mark officially joined as her co-host, and suddenly the show wasn't just Kelly's chair with a rotating guest star beside her. It became something audiences had quietly hoped for without ever fully admitting it. A real marriage hosting a real show together. Not a work friendship dressed up as chemistry. An actual, Decades-long partnership finally sharing the same desk every single day. Hello. That's why so much of the audience reaction to any shift in their schedule, even something as small as a pre-taped episode, carries more emotional weight than it might for another show. Because viewers aren't just watching two co-hosts. They're watching a marriage that's chosen to be public, chosen to be visible, in an industry that often chews up relationships and spits out headlines about breakups instead. When you've spent this many years married, working the same job, sharing the same home, raising 3 kids together, Michael, Lola, and Joaquin, and you're still choosing to sit next to each other on camera every morning, that says something. It's not performance. Performance is exhausting to sustain for this long. What audiences are responding to is something closer to comfort. Familiarity. Two people who have clearly done the work to still like each other after all this time. That's the emotional undercurrent beneath every shake-up headline about this couple. It's rarely actually about scandal. It's about audiences being so invested in their relationship that even a scheduling change feels significant. We've become collectively protective of Kelly and Mark's dynamic because it represents something a lot of people quietly hope is possible, that love and partnership can survive fame, survive career pressure, survive decades of change, and still look like two people cracking each other up on a Tuesday morning. So when people ask why a summer break or a new docuseries counts as a major shakeup, maybe the honest answer is that it doesn't, not really, not in the dramatic sense the phrase implies. But it does mark a quiet evolution. A couple who spent years simply being on television are now shaping what gets made for television. A host who built her identity in front of the camera is now trusting a vision from behind it. And a marriage that's been on public display for years is choosing even now to protect a little bit of privacy. A vacation, a pause, a breath, before stepping back into the spotlight. Maybe that's the real story here. Not a shakeup in the sense of conflict or crisis, but a shakeup in the sense of growth. People change. Careers evolve. Priorities shift. And watching two people navigate that shift together, still choosing each other, still choosing the same table every morning, is honestly more compelling than any manufactured drama could be. Perhaps the reason so many people remain invested in Kelly and Mark isn't simply because they've spent decades in the spotlight. It's because audiences continue to see something genuine in the way they navigate life together, even in the small, quiet moments that never make a splashy headline. So here's a question worth sitting with. What do you think this next chapter looks like for them? More time behind the camera, or will they always find their way back in front of it? And what's the Kelly and Mark moment that stuck with you the most? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes the smallest exchanges are the ones that stay with us the longest.